Welcome to Taos Education and Career Center's Social Studies Fall 2017 class. We are reading Rethinking Rural, Global Community and Economic Development in Small Town West, and this is a Section 2 overview. So in the past, we looked at the rural West in isolation, so the period of the 1600s to the mid-1850s or late 1800s. Then we looked at rural West in mass society from the late 1800s up to about 1950. And now we're going to, for the rest of the book, be looking at rural West in global society. So here we see the huge transition from a local culture with local values and a local economy and to this globalized world, globalization. And the world, as we all know it for some time now, is really a globalized world where we are connected all over the world. And there are benefits and drawbacks to this. There's a question here that's straight from the book where it says, how do individuals, families, and communities of the world West confront the issues and problems as well as enjoy opportunities inherent in the global society era? If you don't know the word inherent, I strongly encourage you to pause the video and look it up. So how do we both enjoy the benefits of a globalization, but also confront the issues that it is bringing our small town West? So the author was part of a national series of meetings between 13 Western states. It took place in like 2009, 2010. And all of these states, they were roundtable discussions to discuss rural development in the modern global world. And there were three major issues and concerns that emerged amongst all of the states, of which New Mexico is one. The first was determining the appropriate natural resource uses. So how in modern world, given everything we know about the environment, do we use our natural resources? Second was coping with limited economic opportunities and how to do this through place-based rural development. So place-based meaning a local economy with local people rather than inviting in the big box stores. And how do we face a town like Taos that has limited economic opportunities? What is the right decisions about development? The third was how do we enhance human capacity through people-based rural development? So the capacity of humans. So often the criticism of businesses moving to states like New Mexico is that we don't have a professional enough labor force to sustain those companies at the level of efficiency needed. And so looking at how do we enhance or how do we grow human capacity through really investing people-based development. And adult education, the program that you are all in, is an example of how we enhance human capacity through people-based development and education. So for the remainder of this session, we are going to be looking at this question of determining appropriate natural resource uses. How should we use our natural resources in the 21st century? And if you can see in this slide well enough, these are all different areas that the natural resources in our rural West support us, and even nationally. And so there's a big question now and a huge worldwide debate given the high population and our environmental concerns of really how do we appropriately use these resources. And it's a central question because our baseline survival, food, water, shelter, depends on it. So the book in this summary refers back to a time of manifest destiny. And I want to make sure that people really understand what this concept meant. And so you can read this definition here from Wikipedia. You can click on the link if you want to read more about it. And really the purpose is to really make sure that in your own words you understand what this concept meant. That there were special virtues of the American people. And I want you to question which American people they were referring to. Were they referring to all American people that had these special virtues? And the mission of the United States was to redeem and remake the West in the image of agrarian America. Agrarian means farmer. So what does it mean to redeem? If you don't know that word, look it up. So this idea that we were somehow redeeming the West, and what were we redeeming it from? And there was this irresistible or God-given destiny. This was very much a spiritual idea that God, our God-given right and destiny, was to accomplish this conquering of the West. So as the United States moved west, this is an old map of, you can see the original states there on the East Coast, and then you see this huge Oregon and Missouri territory of uncharted lands, and then New Spain and New Granada. So all of that in pink and light pink was owned by Spain at the time. And then Mexico gained their independence and it became Mexican territory. And so really you can see that the empire of the United States started out very small. The Mexican-American War was how Mexico ended up losing California, New Mexico, parts of Texas, Arizona, and huge swath of land to the United States. There is a lot of controversy. It's always put forth in the American history books that Mexico were the aggressors and they started the war, and that we really tried to resolve things, and it was our last-ditch effort that we had to send troops in to conquer. If you hear the perspective from the Mexican side, it's very different, that we actually went into Mexico to conquer them, and that the whole rationale behind the Mexican-American War was manifest destiny. And the president at the time, Polk, really believed in manifest destiny and felt like it was our destiny to conquer these lands. There's 2 YouTube video links that are fairly short there that help explain it, but this is a key war to understand in terms of understanding the history of New Mexico, where we really were a part of Mexico prior to the mid-1800s. So when you read the history books about manifest destiny and the Mexican-American War and Western expansion, it's often depicted that these lands were not inhabitable and open, and nobody was living there. And as you can see from this map, the United States, throughout the United States, was heavily populated. And there was pretty much all of these lands were part of various different Native American tribal populations' territory. And so there's a couple statistics, and there's a link here that is a really good lesson that talks about manifest destiny and the impact of manifest destiny on Native Americans in particularly. But the population from 10 million Native peoples in the U.S. By 1900 had diminished to 250,000. So there was a massive genocide that happened in order to create the expansion of the United States. And the majority of the Indian tribal land holdings passed into white ownership. So there were many ways that whites legally and illegally got these tribal lands into their hands. But there were 138 million acres in 1887 still left of tribal lands. And by 1934, there were only 48 million left. And so the impact of manifest destiny on Native Americans was immense.